everyone, welcome back. Persona here. So, the season is almost over, and we are back with this time an updated Dofus PvP tier list based off of the current season. So, just as a bit of a reminder, the tier list that we're going to be building is based purely on the data gathered via the Colosseum leaderboards on the Dofus website. And then I'll go through, I guess, a little bit of the visualization tool that I use just to sort of build an understanding around what's strong and where the classes sit currently within the meta. So let's get started with 1v1. The way this works is that on the x-axis we've got rating going up, and then we've got the classes on the left. But we're going to work our way backwards, starting off with the strongest class at the minute, and that is, by some margin actually, the Osamodus. So Osamodus's last season were probably around midway, I guess, or mid to bottom tier overall in 1v1 and 3v3. However, this season, after their revamp, they have surged to the #1 spot, and by quite some way. So with a win rate of just over 71% and an average rating of 3,720, they are really showing just how strong they are. And to be honest with you, I think that's across all of the elements. Agility Osamoda seems really popular, as is the Chance Osamoda's build with AP reduction, with shields, etc. It's just overall a really, really strong class. Then we have, by no surprise, I guess, also the Echo Flip. It was a strong class last season. It's got erosion. It has heals as well. It's got a lot of movement abilities. It's just got a really solid kit for 1v1. And with the erosion that it has, it's always going to be a strong choice. Then we have the Pandawa. It's another strong class, I guess. It was showing last season its strength, but it's again just still performing quite well. I guess it's the high damage output they have, the good movement, as well as the unhealable state that they can apply, which counters some of the heals or the Dokoko effects, etc. when needed. Then we have the Sacria. Again, this was another popular class last season. They're super tanky. They've got shields for days, and they've got a really solid damage output as well, with good movement and healing as well. So, yep, another really solid class. Then we have SRAMs. So SRAMs showing that they're still pretty top tier, despite all of the nerfs with invisibility, etc. And they're always capable of pulling off a trap chain or just sort of moving around the maps quite freely. So again, it's another really strong class and benefits a lot from Dofuses like the Black Spotted, where they can cast traps without doing direct damage and get a free 300 shield each turn. Next we have Uganak, so high damage output. They have erosion, they have shields, so the combination with ferocity, etc., to self buff their shields is really strong. Although they can be outmatched against certain classes on certain maps quite easily. So they're top tier, but not always the strongest class, I would say. Then we have the Fognauts. Again, another solid option. It's got erosion. It's got a bit of everything, the Fognaut, so it's always going to be up there. Then we have the Zelor. Zelor's in 1v1, not the strongest. I think there's quite a high skill cap for them. So to play a Zelor well in 1v1, you have to play really well, because their survivability comes through their movement. And depending on the map, that might be sometimes harder than other times. So personally, it's not a class I struggle against in 1v1, but yeah, you have to be a really special Zelor to perform well here. Then we have the Sedida. It's probably the class on here that I was surprised with most, because I think you see a lot of Sedidas in sort of the top overall. Like there are quite a few Sedidas that are in the top leaderboards, etc. But overall, that's not the case. So perhaps it is just a few players outperforming all the others in the class. They don't have erosion, but they do have quite high survivability with the heals of the dolls, etc. And yeah, but seemingly so not one of the strongest at the minute. Then we have the Rogue. So Rogues they're a bit of a fan favorite, I'd guess, in 1v1, just because of their well, they're pretty fun to play in terms of they can pull off a one shot out of nowhere. So it may seem like they're they're losing, and then all of a sudden they can win a game out of nowhere. So yeah, really fun class in 1v1, and it always sort of does sort of mid to pretty well. Then we have the IOP. So yeah, it's a strong damage class. They've got erosion, they've got shields, and with the Sylvan Dofus, Coco, etc., they've got pretty good survivability as well. So not to be overlooked there. Followed by the Kra, the Forge Lance. Forge Lance is a very strong class, and people often say Forges are quite broken, but in 1v1 format, not I would say less so. They really excel more in the team games rather than 1v1, and that's apparent here in the data. Then we have my favorite class, the Masquerader, and I can personally testify to this one. They are really struggling at the minute. I'd say probably most game modes actually. They lack a bit of identity since other classes have been given what used to be unique to masks and shields, etc. And they don't have the damage output or the range damage really, or erosion to combat some of these other classes that you see upper in the ratings. So yeah, not a good time to be a mask main. Then we have Eliotropes. Eliotropes can be really strong, but it's very much map dependent. On a small map, etc., or against some classes like Osamoduses, etc., they really struggle. So it's not a good meta for the Eliotrope, sadly. And then I think, I mean, these are pretty much the same sort of classes as last season that sort of always continuously struggle in 1v1 just because they don't have the well, either the erosion capabilities always, or they're more lower damage output classes. So Upper Mage, Enotrof, Eneripsa, Feka, no surprises there. They haven't had any radical changes, and yeah, they're not going to move until that happens. Moving on to 3v3. So this is a bit more interesting actually, because rather than just having the Osamodus by itself in the top bracket, I mean, it is still number one, by the way, with a rating average of just over 3,700. We also see the resurgence of Zealors, and Zealors are very, very strong at the minute in 3v3. A few reasons, really. They have an incredibly high damage output based off the combination of some of the strength and intelligence spells that go really well hand in hand together. And the way they're able to buff AoE on their team in AP in AoE on their team is really, really strong. So, I mean, quite often you'll see turn 2 Zealors buffing their team. I mean, their team will be up to like 18 AP, and at that point they can just sort of one-shot anyone. So Zealors really, really strong at the minute, and it's sort of been reflected also in the current Dofus Coliseum tournament. And then we have, I guess, in this top bracket also the Forge Lance. So this is probably, I guess, the number one choice at the minute overall as like the damage dealer role in the 3v3 format. So with a win rate here of just over 68%, really, really strong. And it's a popular utility class in teams for its damage. It's got good support as well, but it counters a lot of classes. So it counters the likes of Osamodus with the summons because it's got AoE. It can apply shields, heals, etc. And it's got pretty good damage from across the map. So it's a very flexible class overall, and that's what gives it the Forge Lance its strength, its flexibility, really. Then we have the Eneripsa. So from being one of the bottom classes in 1v1, it's still one of the top classes in 3v3, driven by its ability to really AP boost. It's got some good movement as well, and the AP reduction synergy that it can play sometimes with Zealors is really strong, or just simply boosting something like an IOP in a team to 18-20 AP can be really, really, really strong. Then we have the Sacria, so you get a lot of sort of strength tank Sacrias, which hit really hard, but they can also perform a lot of defensive or support duties. So they're really strong at the minutes, and they're a great counter against the likes of the Zealor with the gravity AoE states that they can apply, and they can also counter some of the movements as well with their ability to swap with targets, etc. which I think sort of probably leads into why Panda is pretty strong at the minute in 3v3. Both the movement and the counters it can do to some of the Zelo teams is really strong. But also not to be overlooked is the Gargandias items from the Osa dimension, where you can see some like strength crit pandas doing insane amounts of damage with that, and you're talking the panda doing 3 to 4k damage in neutral per turn with that, which is really strong. Then we have IOP. So as I sort of mentioned, IOP has a lot of synergy at the minute with some of the Osimodas, the Zelo teams, etc., and the Eneripsas. And it's probably the erosion choice class in a Zelo team because the damage that they have once AP buffed is really strong. Interestingly, I've seen quite a few intelligence-based IOPs with the new war. Is it the depth set, the intelligence set from under Sophokia? Really high damage output on the IOPs at the minute. And then if we sort of go down, I guess, a bit of a bracket, Ecoflip's closely following the IOP. I mean, no surprise, they're always sort of a flexible damage-based character with erosion, followed by the Fogonaut, which again is sort of it's in the middle, and that's not too surprising because it can fill a lot of roles. Pushback Fogonauts are quite strong if you can surprise the team, or the opposing team, but often can be countered with Lava Smith Dofuses, etc. And then we have the Feka. The Feka's actually, I think, fallen behind a little bit based off of the last meta. However, that's probably because of the popularity of Osimodus taking that Feka spot in teams. So it's still strong, it's just not as prevalent as it was last season. Then we have followed by the Sedida. Sedidas, I think, suffer just because of the meta at the minute. I wouldn't say they're inherently bad. Personally, I play a Chance Sedida in my team. However, when you're going against teams with Forge Lancers and Zelors and Sacrias, which have a lot of movement and map manipulation effects, etc., and AoE damage, the Sedida can often be quickly overrun. The Mask Raider in 3v3, yeah, is sort of in the middle of the road. It's probably one of the worst performing support type classes at the minute, just because a lot of other classes have since taken the role of being able to provide shield points. So it's a little bit lost, I'd say, at the minute, and there's no sort of really unique positioning around masks in 3v3. Although I would say in a draft type format, masks probably do a bit better. But when you're going against people that have like 2 times AP buffing characters with an IOP, mask really suffers. Then we have the Heliotrope. It's similar sort of situation to 1v1 really. It's very much map dependent, not the strongest at the minute. Followed by an Uganak, which, I mean, Uganaks are strong, but when you're looking at the likes of IOPS and Forge Lancers, etc., it's just, it falls a bit behind those, to be honest with you. Then we have really sort of getting to some of the underperforming characters now in 3v3. So the Hupper Mage, it can do a lot, but doesn't really do anything the best. So that's probably the way to summarize Hupper Mages, to be honest with you. Followed by the Kra, which, okay, is a bit one-dimensional in its gameplay. Most people play pushback crowds, etc., which is easily countered. So I wouldn't say it's exactly the strongest, and it doesn't really have any true sort of support abilities when it comes to teammates. Then we have the SRAM, which, yeah, I think when you're talking about a really strong Forge Lance meta at the minute, Forges just can quickly identify people within Mist, etc. So SRAM loses a lot of its function there. Then we have the Enotrof, which, yeah, I think it just doesn't really have a role at the minute in 3v3 teams. When you look at the other classes you can build a team with at the minute. Although that being said, I would say it is a bit of an overlooked counter to some of the Zelor-based teams. Something like a pull-out to cancel off some of the turn 2 tricks that the Zelor team will be doing, plus the Umber Witch capabilities can help mitigate against some of that AP buffing effect that they may have. So I think there are unique matchups where Enotrof can be really strong, but overall it's not going to be competing at the higher levels. Followed by the Rogue, and I mean, I won't go into too much detail on the Rogue. But the rogue is, yeah, it suffers in 3v3 based off of the meta of the AoE damages, etc. The bombs are quickly wiped out, and they really struggle to pull off any sort of major combinations as a result of that. Okay, so if we then take that through to the tier list for 1v1, we saw that Osamodus was out on top, pretty much in a bracket by itself, followed by a really strong tier then of the Ekflip. We had the Panda in there, we saw the Sack, SRAM, Uganak, and the Fognaut. And then another strong tier, actually, we'll put this as the B tier of the Zelor. We had the Sedita in there, we had the Rogue, IOP as well, Kra, and the Forge Lance. And then once we get to C, I think this is where we start to get a bit of, well, we start to go to the underperforming classes in this game mode. So we had the Mask, we had the Heliotrope, and the Hupper Mage. And then finally, I mean, this is, yeah, I mean, these classes are really struggling. The Enitroff, the Eneripsa, and the Feka. I think overall is probably a fair reflection of the meta, where we stand in 1v1. The only thing I think I might, well, I'd point out really is that some of these classes in this B tier, so the Zelor, Sedita, IOP, in fact, all of them really, could compete against some of these in the A and S tier if it's a skilled player. So someone like a really high skilled Zelor, someone like Infi, he will be able to compete quite well against some of these A tier classes. It's just that you don't see as many of those players coming through. Same goes for the Sedita. Yeah. So overall, if you're looking to have a good time in 1v1, then go for something either in this BA, or if you want quite an easy ride, then go for the Osamodus, and stay away from some of these bottom classes down here, because you are going to struggle then to get through to the leaderboard positions. And then moving on to the 3v3 tier list, we saw that the top bracket this time was Osamodus, Zelor, and the Forge Lance, followed by an A tier, quite a big A tier actually, of the Eneripsa, Sacria, Panda, IOP, Ecoflip. So we're looking at the damage dealers here, the Fognaut, and then the Feka for a bit of support. In the B tier, we then saw, so these are classes that are, they're sort of average. They're not the best at the minute, but they're going to do they can do pretty well. So we saw Sedita, we had the Mask Raider, we saw the Heliotrope, and the Uganak. And then at this point, I'd say you're looking at the classes that start to struggle a little bit. So we have the Hupper Mage, we have the Kra, and the SRAM. And then I guess the worst performing classes at the minute in 3v3 are the Enitroff and the Rogue. Again, I think overall, actually, this is a pretty good reflection. I think actually there's not much here I would change. It's quite clear that you have these three top tier classes at the minute in 3v3 everywhere. The only thing I would say, if you're looking to build the best 3v3 team, I wouldn't automatically put those three together. I think you're probably looking at a combination of something like an Osamodus, a Zelor, and an IOP or an Ecoflip, purely because the Forge Lance can sometimes be a bit limited in terms of its erosion, and the IOP, Ecoflip, etc. can put their erosion down on a much more frequent basis. Plus, when you start to talk about those classes scaled up to 18 AP or so, they can do huge amounts of damage and can really win you a game pretty much on turn 2. So that's it for now. I think things to watch out for next season will be the impact of the new legendary items. Quite a few interesting choices coming out. I'm quite interested to see there's a legendary item that looks like it could be a bit of a counter to Osa's. So when you kill a summon, you gain, I think it was 10% or so health or 20% out of your max health back. So if you're gaining that per summon killed, that could be quite impactful. But overall, there won't be any radical class changes by the looks of it, although never say never with Ankama whilst the beta's open. Otherwise, I think it could be a pretty similar meta for next season. I'll be back again in a few months' time when we look to see how that goes. But in the meantime, I'm sure I'll be back with some more Colosseum videos again soon. Thank you for now. Bye-bye.